Hi, Nancy. Welcome.
Thanks, Jamie.
I'm so happy to be here with you. We've known each other a long time. We're Yogini sisters, and you're an expert in so many areas of healing and yoga for arthritis, clearly, and all of the good work that you do. Much of it in hospitals now in New York. So I wanted to invite you to talk about anything you want to share before we dive in about your very, very interesting history.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks, Jamie, for all of the wonderful work that you do to spread the word about compassion and peace and listening and heart-based practices. I'm just so proud to know you. So, my yoga journey, which began about 20 years ago, actually was because of being on a ventilator. And it's been amazing to hear about people struggling with the symptoms post-COVID or even during COVID. And so some of the ways that have developed from that initial experience when I was first introduced to yoga and have since come to depend on it 24/7 to be able to function, really. Now I am a yoga therapist with Hospital for Special Surgery, and they share the vision of yoga therapy being a good companion to medical care. Luckily, so I teach like a weekly therapeutic yoga class at Hospital for Special Surgery. Up until the middle of March, it was on site at the hospital here in New York City, but then it went straight to Zoom. And then we also added some other web-based things. For instance, there's a deep relaxation that's on the Hospital for Special Surgery website that everybody can access. And I hate to brag, but it's got like 88,000 views. I'm just
Oh,
amazed.
that is so
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, and a meditation for anxiety, but mostly I'm working with people who have difficult medical diagnoses, as I did, and yoga helped me and helps me to this day. But also arthritis, spondylitis, and um, do webinars and presentations and collaborate with the social workers and staff, which is so wonderful because then we're able to do like groups and do mind body approaches to pain or mind body approaches to stress or mind body approaches to post COVID right now.
Mm.
So basically bringing the 8 limbs of yoga to, because all of them apply to people who are really struggling and living with uh, difficult diagnoses and difficult medical conditions, because the ability to access and to embody your peace,
Mm.
even though you are struggling with, for instance, PTSD or physical challenges, is so important and transformative.
Mm.
So also at this moment, we're developing a yoga for coronavirus class at Integral Yoga here in New York, where
Oh,
I teach and train.
wow.
And I also, one of my favorite things to do is to train teachers. And we've worked together on that. And I'm the mentor director here in New York City for the yoga therapy school.
We're
We
laughing.
laugh, yeah.
We go way back in that
Yeah,
launching of that
amen.
program. Nancy, it's so wonderful that you are truly on the cutting edge with your experience at this time. I knew a little bit about the challenges that you had faced, but not a lot. And I really appreciate your willingness to talk about it and your vulnerability. And I think those of us who haven't been on a ventilator maybe don't really understand the full ramifications of that. Could you talk a little bit about your personal experience of what that was like and the aftermath for you?
Sure. It was 6 weeks on a ventilator, and they imposed the coma. You'll notice I block on some of these words. I'm still dealing with the PTSD. I think I always will. So that's one of the symptoms is I really block on the words. Um, but the symptoms, I was on for 6 weeks. And during that time was in an induced coma, and during that time had several surgeries, all of which were considered to be kind of life-saving as my organs continued to fail one by one, and they had to rush me in to do the surgery. I was not aware of any of this because I was in the coma and on the ventilator, but my family went through the trauma of having to sign away permission and understanding through all of those surgeries. And so it's a family, it's a group experience, because there you are on the ventilator with all the life-saving things, being done to you, and it's your family and your loved ones and your friends who really are going through their own trauma. So after waking up from 6 weeks on the ventilator, then I didn't know what had happened. I'll just kind of give you a list of some of the highlights of the symptoms. When I did come home a couple weeks later, I did not recognize my own jewelry. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't recognize the clothes in my closet. So it really can play a lot of games with your memory. You also have the deep-seated trauma of the surgeries that occurred or the treatment that occurred, and the actual fact of this, plastic tube doing your breathing for you, which I found to be a very long-lasting fear, because I could actually sense that dead plastic doing my breathing for me, which immediately to me, when I would recall it later, therapy and various things, deep relaxation, where it was that fear of not being able to breathe, that I had to deal with. Plus, I was unable to walk. I was unable to feed myself at that time. So it took, and this is, I think, what people are going through, the physical, the muscular weaknesses and deficits, plus all of the organ damage and the systemic damage physically that occurs. There's the emotional things to deal with in terms of your own mental challenges, but also your families, because they are so upset and so traumatized. So that was something that I think I still deal with to this day, even though it's 20 years later. My kids, went through that, my husband. And so it took me a while to learn to walk again and feed myself. I was on a walker. I couldn't really sit because most of my injuries and surgeries were abdominal, because that's where the massive infection was. And so to this day, I have mesh inserted instead of where my abdominal muscles, they all retracted during this time with all these surgeries. And so the mesh was inserted in place of the muscles. And so I'll just switch the camera down a little bit, from my diaphragm down to my pubic bone and side to side, it's all mesh. So I constantly look pregnant. And don't have the abdominal strength there. So yoga itself has helped me so much, just to be able to have presence, number one, and to access my peace, but also for, infusing the strength that I need to be able to sit up and to walk, and it's a lifelong uh, challenge that I am so grateful has been met for me with yoga.
Hmm. Thank you. Nancy, did you have a yoga practice before you went through this experience?
No, I did
So
not.
how did you begin to utilize the many wonderful tools and techniques that yoga offers, and how did it start to help you come back to your new normal?
My it was kind of at that time, after I had been released from the hospital and was home recuperating and trying to get better so that I could face the additional surgeries that I had to have to address my issues,
Hmm.
quote unquote. That word issues is massive, but excuse me. um, at the time that I got out, I knew that I wanted to take an interval approach, and at that time, 1999, last century, I was waiting for this Center for Health and Healing, which was a pioneering integrative medical approach. I was waiting for this center to open in New York. And so I was in contact with them, and immediately the integrative doctor there referred me to yoga. He introduced me to people who then started uh, I started meeting once or twice a week. They would come to the house,
Hmm.
yoga therapists. This was before there was a certified yoga therapist, and they were just out there doing it through integral yoga, basically,
Hmm.
at that point.
Yeah.
And Cherry and Arturo,
Hmm.
therapeutic yoga, using their teachings, something probably we would want to share with everybody, therapeutic yoga. Um, so that's when I requested it. I requested yoga because the hospital itself was helping me to to access uh, components that would support me in my healing journey. At that point, recall I was not walking, I could not sit because of this mesh and the surgeries and everything. So um, most of what I did was reclining. And so at that point, the yoga therapist who came to me once or twice a week, in addition to many other therapies that I was accessing and being prescribed at that point. So there I was laying down. And so that's where my practice started. And I have to admit, even here now, 20 years later, it's where a lot of my practice occurs, bed yoga.
Hey, whatever works, right?
Exactly.
Whatever serves you and helps to um, bring you to a place of peace.
Right.
Yeah. Nancy, when you began, would you say I know we talk and we share a lot of um, practices that are not only similar, but many are the same. Did you find that you began first with breathing? I know that that's such a key component to yoga as we work as therapists. And I'm just wondering, like, what was the first practice that was most beneficial when you started to make this journey into the yoga realm?
I was so lucky with the teachers that I came in contact with at that time. They were able to work initially it was a group,
Mhm.
frankly, that led me then to ask for the personal, um, visits to my house. And I have to say, just is so amazing that this was the start, and this is where it continues to be the touchstone. It's the breath, but in a profound way, because the breath in itself is a practice of compassionate awareness. And it's that ability to use the breath when we switch our intention from simply un, the involuntary, what is it called? When you don't have to think about it. Unconscious.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
unconscious breathing, switching
Uh-huh.
from unconscious, constant breathing to being able to attach awareness and then compassionate awareness, compassion for oneself, which is really difficult. And one of the things that I teach as a basic approach to dealing with these challenges. When you are able to say, "Oh, I'm breathing. Let's see. Let me have it. Take a deep breath." So I frequently teach basic three-part breath: expand the belly, lower ribs, upper chest. I'd be happy to invite your listeners, your viewers now to do that, so you can establish yourself in a nice comfortable way. And it's nice sometimes just to press your legs down a little bit into the floor so you really feel the support of your lower torso. And
Mhm.
then with that support, even if you're reclining, to think in terms of engaging that lower torso just for the engagement aspect of it. And then to expand the belly, expand the lower ribs, expand the upper chest. And as you exhale, feel like a waterfall is flowing, releasing also as you find those upper ribs and draw them in. Find the lower ribs and almost feel like you're getting punched in the solar plexus. So you're actually moving that diaphragm, which they've found so helpful in COVID treatment, the movement of that diaphragm, so that you're really able to access the full capacity that you have available. And then the third part of that exhalation is drawing the belly in, almost like a sit-up. So you're really bringing the full torso's power to the breath, the inhalation, the opening, and the exhalation, the releasing, but also the movement within the torso. So the compassionate awareness, attaching an intention to that breath, whether it's patience that you need, or presence, or hope, or forgiveness, or acknowledgement of your fear, honoring the power of fear.
Mhm.
You always have a full choice, right, Jamie, to be able to choose the intention. And then when you combine that with your body and your mind, which of course is what yoga is all about, that
Mhm.
yoking of those powers,
Yeah.
then in a very, very profound way, you are accessing deep into your healing power,
Mhm.
which I could go into physiologically in terms of
Yes.
stress states and,
Mhm.
but we don't need to do that at this point. So yes, it's compassionate awareness through the breath. That's the basic teaching. And then using that in whatever you're doing, whether you're laying down and just doing that,
Mhm.
or whether you're actually standing and doing a bit of a lunge, or some pose, some asana that allows you to incorporate the breath with that movement, but also always in a very kind way. So one of the things I find myself needing to do with the people that I work with, whether it's a webinar or one-on-one or in a group, is to say, this is not necessarily stretching. It's not exercise. It really is gentle, compassionate movement that helps to lubricate and increase the circulation. One
Mhm.
thing I want to get to is the COVID practice that they've discovered, basically, and it fits in so well with the yoga. We don't have to get to it now, but it's the idea of proning, which is basically a forward bend. And what they've been able to find, proning is actually turning the patient in the
Yes.
bed so that they're facing down, and that frees up
The
the
lungs.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that people who are struggling with their breath at least have that access to the
Yeah.
backs of the lungs.
Yes. Nancy, you said something I don't want to forget to emphasize something that was very, very distinct, which I think is the hallmark of a yoga therapist, a fine yoga therapist as you are, when you talked about leading people through this process of recognizing how to breathe functionally, you introduce so many different variables in terms of their own emotional world, you know, because we know people are going to have different experiences. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
one of the things that's so unique and wonderful about yoga therapy, which many people, perhaps people watching this, might not realize who are used to going to, say, group yoga classes or even taking any of the fine online offerings now online, yoga therapy is really geared to the individual. So in your languaging, you just eloquently invited people, whether they're experiencing rage or fear or grief or sadness, you know, it's going to be different for everyone. And just giving that permission as you did, I think it's a balm almost to the suffering that we all, you know, are experience in our lives, and certainly people recovering from this kind of situation.
There's such comfort when you are, first of all, filled with fear, filled with, PTSD, as you would be, anybody really would be, from the treatment that they have to go through at a hospital. Plus, thank God I didn't have to go through this, and I don't know how I would get through it, but not having the access to your loved ones
Oh,
in
yeah,
the hospital.
I
So
know.
that in itself adds a whole different level of suffering
Yeah.
to the situation. But being able to be present, and I'd be really happy to share this very short mini meditation with you that I have found so helpful in the people that I've worked with recently. And that's just to be very present right now with this breath in
Okay.
these clothes.
All
It's
right.
a short one, that's why I'm happy to share it, and people love it. So to be present in this moment in mountain pose, if you're aware of what that is, so you
Mhm.
really full body presence. And with the breath, inhale. And then as you exhale, if it's safe for you, and if it's not, you can just imagine this, gently and turn your head toward one shoulder, not in a way that's stretching, but just opening up those vertebrae in your neck. And then you do a ha, three ha breaths toward the past. So, and you direct those ha breaths toward the past, which is where our fear sits.
Mm.
And then, so let's do it one more time, thinking in terms of directing it toward the past. So inhale, and as long as it's safe for you, and then with an inhalation, come on back to center, recenter yourself, close on the skin, this breath, this room, this moment, with compassion for anyone who you feel compassion for. Just summon up that sense of compassion. Inhale, and then exhale, turn to the other shoulder, circle the lips, and blow toward the future. Separating yourself just slightly with that blowing from the future, which is really where our anxiety comes from, future oriented, right? One more time. Inhale, as long as it doesn't make you dizzy. And exhale, blow toward the future. And then come on back to center and the present. So many profound, deeply yogic practices wrapped up into that practice. Very simple, and yet you have an intention with the breath and the movement of the body, and allow yourself then to have a very specific practice that allows you to reorient yourself in this present moment.
What do you call that, Nancy, what we just did?
I call it a mini meditation
Mini
because,
meditation.
yeah, I found it on, I came across it, and I'm sorry, very sorry to say that I did not record at the time because I didn't realize how much I would be using it. I did not record the source of it, and I'd be happy to know so that I could credit whoever shared that practice on some email or something that I
Okay.
follow.
Well,
Oh, speaking of following, and before it gets too late, I just want to recommend to everybody, because there's a whole movement around the post-COVID recovery issues.
mhm,
And the main American, because this is a global phenomenon, but the main American group that has now thousands of folks is called Survivor Core. Survivor Core, CORPS.
okay.
And that's where you can search. They have all kinds of social networking presence
That's
if you want to
wonderful.
connect. Yeah.
I'll include the URL in this video so that people can check that out. And how are you today, Nancy, these many years after? It sounds like it has not only, well, become a passion of yours, and you bring the work to others, but personally, how has it affected your quality of life? And I think it's very inspiring to hear that, if you'd share.
Yeah, the practice, I just can't even begin to say how much of an effect it has on my quality of life, because I continue to struggle with physical and psychological issues. And yet the practice itself continues to bring me back again and again to um, operating out of a place of compassion for myself, which after these 20 years, I think has increased my ability to spread that compassion to larger and larger um, targets, but also just people, and to understand. And so that in itself becomes very supportive in this journey. So the fact that I always look pregnant, for instance, or, that I definitely need to rest, uh, give myself basically 10 hours at night to get a full 8 hours of sleep. And I recommend that sleep is the number one most important thing,
Mhm.
so that your judgment, so that your body can have the fuel that it needs to be able to function and to heal. I'm constantly with my classes, the individuals, the groups, the social workers, the medical people that I collaborate with, and getting, the feedback. Oh my God, this is incredible. I listen to you every morning. I have you can Google me, Nancy O'Brien, and meditation and hospital for special surgery, deep relaxation. And because there are, you know, um, things that you can watch and listen to that Hospital for Special Surgery has created and offered in a nice professional way.
So,
So
Betsy, do you
yeah,
have to be a patient or have an invitation? So anyone, anywhere can participate in your classes at the Hospital for Special Surgery.
anyone anywhere, yes, can sign up for the classes through Hospital for Special Education's Patient Education Department. We have new
Okay.
offerings coming for the fall, but also these I don't know what you call them, videos, are accessible to anybody anywhere
Okay.
for the deep relaxation, and there's a short meditation for anxiety. Yeah, so
Wonderful. Well,
today
I
I'm
hope,
just fed by the practice. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Tell me a little bit about any work that you're doing personally, if you are with people, and how they might contact you, either, uh, for your private groups or one-on-one.
hmm Um, email is,
Okay.
is Nancy O'Brien Yoga,
Uh-huh. All right.
OBRIEN, yoga at gmail.com.
All right.
And so you can email me. I do have a website. I can email you back, and you'll see the link to the website, which is so long I can't even remember it. It's Wix site, and has lots of good.
You don't know the URL of your
I
website?
just link on it because it's so long.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
Nancy
hunt it.
O'Brien Yoga
Okay.
/
I'll
Wixsite.
hunt it down and I'll put it in the video.
Yeah, yeah. So there's the website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on mostly Facebook. Nancy O'Brien Yoga.
Okay, good.
Nancy O'Brien. Yeah. I would like to mention one thing before we
Great.
run out of time, and that is deep relaxation.
Mm,
The most powerful practice that sustained me then and gave me that access to peace, deep, deep peace, um, and still does, and that I recommend to everybody, especially if you are in deep recovery and lots of acute issues and struggling with,
mm,
consciousness or pain or deep relaxation. There are, as you were saying, Jamie, lots of offerings online now, but the deep relaxation practice, Yoga Nidra, which has been around for centuries, the yogic sleep, and it just happens to have figured out all of the ways that you can bring together the limbs of yoga to be able to relax yourself, but also then to embody your own
mhm,
peace and to feel it inside and out, heart, mind, body.
mhm,
I cannot recommend it enough.
mm. And we're so fortunate, aren't we, that we're living in a time to understand why these practices have so much benefit. I mean, there is so much science out there now about the deep benefits of going through the sheaths as we talk
Yeah.
about them in yoga. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very transformative to experience it for the first time. I think that's what hooks a lot of people to yoga when they do a deep relaxation and they come out and it's like, whoa, what was, where did I go? What was that about?
Right. Right.
And
Yeah. We had a half-hour conference call that started up at Hospital for Special Surgery right at the mid-March.
mhm,
And it was so wonderful not to have to deal with the Zoom issues and everything, just for people to be able to call. And we did a half-hour deep relaxation, and it was just so wonderful. That that offering, which was free, has just ended. But between hospitals and for special surgery, their patient education department, and Integral Yoga has lots of beautiful offerings that can support recovery at this point. And I expect in fairly short order for us to be able to offer this yoga for coronavirus kind
mhm,
of regular thing
yeah.
soon.
Nancy, thank you so much for
Thank
talking with
you,
me
Jamie.
today. Before we wrap, would you like to share? I find your energy and your presence to just be so loving. You hold this space of, I don't know, I just feel really taken care of when I'm with you in person and just talking to you now. Would you like to share just a little bit of positivity for the world at this time? I know it's a really tough time for many.
It is such a tough time, but I won't get political, but yay, California. Thank you. Thank you, California, for what you're offering in terms of hope at this time. Um, I read something recently in the New Yorker of a woman who had been a professor teaching about pandemics all her life and then retired to Bologna, her home, which was a site of a lot of suffering in the Black Plague. And she said that a pandemic is like an X-ray, holding up the X-ray to expose where the human body is broken. And she said, following the Black Plague came the Renaissance.
Mhm.
I find that to be extremely hopeful when I see that now it's no longer just a discussion.
Mhm.
Uh, all of the civic issues that we're dealing with now, but action, action, wise action, which is another beautiful result of meditation and yoga and the tradition of these wisdom practices. wise action. I think that that is occurring, that people are turning to each other for support and also to provide service. And I find that to be hugely hopeful.
Thank you. That's very moving. Nancy,
You're
I'm
very moving, Jamie. Thank you so much for all that you are doing. It's just incredible.
oh,
I'm so
thank you.
proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wish you well, and really, I'm going to include many links along with this this video, and of course the newsletter that it will be attached to. But you've given
Can I mention one
many,
more thing,
of
Jamie?
course,
The other
yes,
thing that you can Google is long haulers,
yes,
HAULERS. Those are the people who are dealing with the post COVID effects.
yes. Thank you for all that you're doing and for what's to come. It sounds like there will be continued offerings that make a difference in many people's lives.
Thank you, Jamie.
Blessings. Bye.